Have you ever noticed that some small businesses seem to take off while others struggle for years? Most people assume it's because the successful business has more money, a better logo, or some brilliant idea that no one else has thought of. But after spending the last few years building a business of my own, I'm convinced that's not the reason. I think most successful small businesses get a few simple things right early on. They solve a real problem, they start before they're ready, they take care of customers, they build trust, and they let customer demand guide their growth. In this video, I want to share the 5 lessons that made the biggest difference for me while I worked to build Thirsty Dawg from a small side hustle into a thriving business that serves customers all over the Gulf Coast. But before I do, I want to be honest. I'm not making this video from the finish line. I still work a full-time job. I'm still building this business. I'm still figuring this thing out. And I'm definitely still making mistakes. But sometimes the best lessons come from those who are still in the middle of the journey, because they still remember what the beginning felt like. And for me, the beginning happened with a phone call I made while standing next to a pool. It was the spring of 2023, and my wife had a birthday coming up. All I wanted to do was throw her a surprise party, and at some point, I thought it would be a good idea to get frozen drink machines. I wasn't thinking about starting a business. I wasn't researching opportunities. I was just trying to plan a birthday party. So I stepped outside by this pool right here, and I was going to talk on the phone where she couldn't overhear me. And I made a couple calls. I figured this would be easy. You know, people rent bounce houses, they rent tents, they rent tables and chairs, and surely somebody was going to rent frozen drink machines. And eventually I got a company on the phone from Destin, and I asked them if they service Pensacola. And the guy told me they didn't come this far. So I asked the next obvious question: who does service Pensacola? And I'll never forget what he said. He told me basically nobody does. And at that point, I remember just kind of standing there for a second thinking, what the heck? Like, this could be a business opportunity. But that's not what I was originally trying to do. I was just trying to rent a machine. But another thought hit me. If I'm looking for this and I can't find it, I can't be the only one. And that's the first lesson. Every successful business starts with a problem. In my case, the problem was access. People in my area wanted something they couldn't come across easily. That became an opportunity. But your problem might look different than mine. Maybe you're entering a crowded market like lawn care, cleaning, or pressure washing. That doesn't mean there isn't room for you. It just means the problem may not be access. It may be experience. Maybe the other company doesn't answer their phone. Maybe their pricing is confusing. Maybe they don't show up on time, or maybe their website looks sketchy. Those are all problems too. The question isn't, has somebody already done this? The question is, what's still frustrating people? Find that, and you may have the beginning of a real business. The second thing successful small businesses get right is that they start before they feel ready. And this is probably the one I relate to the most. Because if I had waited until I felt completely ready to start Thirsty Dawg, I probably would have never started. I didn't know how to repair frozen drink machines. I didn't know what problems would come up. I didn't know how to market a business. I didn't know how to build a website. I didn't have a warehouse, and I didn't have a bunch of equipment laying around. But we started anyways. My wife's birthday party was on April 8, 2023. Not long after that, we drove to Destin and shouted at the guy I spoke to on the phone. On May 5th, we announced Thirsty Dawg on Facebook. On May 9th, we registered our business. On May 11th, we served our first customer. That's right, just over a month after that phone call by the pool, we had gone from an idea to our first booking. We started with 2 used frozen drink machines in a trailer. That was it. And looking back, those 2 used machines were one of the best decisions we made because they forced us to learn. They taught us what customers ask, how deliveries work, how pickups work, how much product people use, what problems came up, and most importantly, whether people were actually willing to pay for the service. A lot of people want certainty before they start, but certainty usually comes after you start. You don't need the version of the business you hope to have 5 years from now. You need the version that lets you learn. That's what those 2 machines were. They weren't the final version of the business, they were the first step, and sometimes that's all you need. But starting is only beginning. The next challenge is staying in business. And it didn't take long for me to learn that things go wrong. That brings me to number 3. Successful small businesses obsess over customers. I learned this lesson the hard way. When I started, all I could afford was used machines. I was learning as I went. I didn't know every mechanical issue that could happen, and eventually problems did come up. Machines had issues. Customers occasionally had experiences that were not what I wanted them to have. And those moments taught me more than all the smooth rentals combined. Because when everything goes right, business is easy. It's when something goes wrong that you find out what kind of business you're really building. There was this one customer I'll probably never forget. It was an apartment complex in Fairhope, Alabama, which is more than an hour away from me. They rented one of our frozen drink machines for a resident event. This wasn't just a friends hanging out in the backyard party. They had planned something for their residents and they were counting on us to be a part of it. We delivered the machine, set it up, added the mix, and everything seemed ready. But when they started the machine, it didn't freeze the product the way it was supposed to. And that's the phone call you never want to get. And the timing made it even worse. Their event was about to begin and I was an hour away. There was no way I could get there in time. There was no way for me to save their event. That's a terrible feeling as a business owner. You know people are counting on you. You know guests are showing up. You know the customer trusted you. And you know there isn't some magic fix you can pull out of your pocket. So I did the only thing I could do. I refunded them completely. But I also told them that if they ever hosted another event, their next rental would be completely on me. And I meant it. Because when you're building a business, you take those failures personally. You replay them in your head. You think about what you could have done differently. You wonder if that customer will ever trust you again. The next summer, I happened to be making another delivery in Fairhope, and I passed right by that same apartment complex. All those memories came back. The machine that wouldn't freeze, the disappointment, the phone call, the feeling of knowing I couldn't fix it in time. So when I got home, I sent them a text. I reminded them who I was, and I reminded them of the event. And I also reminded them of the promise I had made. I told them if they ever give me another opportunity, their rental would be free. I sent the message, and then nothing. No reply, no nothing. A few days went by, and I still hadn't heard anything. Eventually, I figured they had moved on. And honestly, I couldn't blame them. But a couple weeks later, my phone rang, and it was them. They were planning another resident event. This time they wanted a soft serve machine. They never mentioned my offer. They just called to book. But I hadn't forgotten. So when the event was over, I didn't charge them a penny. Not for rental, not for delivery, not for anything. Because I had made a promise, and I wanted them to know that my word meant something. The event went perfect, and they were thrilled, and the experience taught me one of the most important lessons I've learned in business. Sometimes how you handle the problem matters more than the problem itself. Customers know things happen. Machines break, mistakes happen, life happens. What they remember is how you respond. That's why customer service is not just customer service. It's marketing. A happy customer doesn't just come back, they tell people. They leave reviews, they recommend you to friends, coworkers, neighbors, churches, schools, businesses. One customer can turn into many. And that's why I ask for reviews after every event. Not because reviews are just compliments, but because reviews are trust. When somebody finds your business online, they don't know you. They don't know if you'll show up. They don't know if your equipment is clean. They don't know if you'll do what you promised. Reviews help answer those questions before they ever talk to you. Successful small businesses understand that. They don't just chase customers, they take care of customers. They protect the relationship, not just the transaction. The fourth thing successful small businesses get right from day one is that they treat it like real business. From the beginning, I knew I didn't want Thirsty Dawg to feel like just another Facebook side hustle. If I was going to spend the time building this, I wanted it to look legit. So we registered the business, we got insurance, started accepting credit cards, I built a website. And when I say I built a website, I don't mean I hired a big marketing company. I taught myself. I learned Elementor, I learned enough SEO to be dangerous. I figured out Google Business Profile, Search Console, and Google Analytics. Was it the perfect website? Not even close. But it was professional enough that customers felt comfortable doing business with us. That all matters because customers don't just buy your product, they buy confidence. They're asking themselves, will this person answer the phone? Will they actually show up? Can I trust them with my money? If something goes wrong, will they make it right? Your website, your reviews, branding, communication, payment options, and booking process all help answer those questions. Every professional thing you do removes friction. And every bit of friction you leave in the process gives customers another reason to look for someone else. Successful small businesses don't wait until they're successful to start acting like a real business. They start acting like a real business first. Then success has a chance to follow. The fifth thing successful small businesses get right is that they let customer demand guide their growth. I started with just 2 used frozen drink machines, but pretty quickly I realized 2 machines weren't enough. I was getting more inquiries, more bookings, and more requests. Eventually, I found myself still having to tell people no. And while sometimes you have to say no, I don't think no should be your default answer. Every customer you turn away is information. It's the market telling you something. So as demand grew, I bought more equipment, not because I wanted more toys, because the demand justified it. Every machine I bought solved a problem that already existed. Then I started seeing new opportunities. One of them happened on a cruise. Everywhere I looked, people were eating soft serve ice cream. Kids, adults, there were bowls all over the table. And that's not to mention the lines that were at the machines right before they shut them down every night. And after a few days, I stopped asking, why do people like soft serve? I mean, that answer was pretty obvious. The better question was, why don't I offer soft serve? I was already delivering frozen equipment. I was already serving parties and events. I was already helping people create experiences. Soft serve fit the same customer, so eventually I added it. Not long after that, I was in Seattle and I saw an ice cream cart stocked with novelty ice cream that could be rented for different events. It wasn't just a cooler and it wasn't just a freezer. It was an actual cart designed around the experience. Immediately, I started thinking about weddings, birthday parties, corporate events, and school functions back home. I came home, did the research, I bought a cart, and I added another service. Again, not because I randomly wanted an ice cream cart, but because I saw something that fit the customers I already served. That's how I think growth should work. Frozen drink machines led to soft serve led to novelty ice cream carts, event rentals led to long-term lease opportunities, not because I wanted to chase random ideas, but because each step solved another problem for the same type of customer. Growth should not be random. It should serve the same customer. It should solve a related problem, and it should build on the trust you've already earned. And sometimes demand shows up as inconvenience. I remember one weekend picking up equipment late at night from a birthday party more than an hour away. By the time I got home, it was already late, and one of those machines had to go back out early the next morning. I still had to clean it, prep it, load it, and deliver it by 6:30 a.m. I could have said no to that job. That would have been easier. The truth was, it was possible. It wasn't convenient and it was exhausting, but it was possible. And that's something I've tried to carry into this business. I don't say yes to everything, but I try not to say no by default. If there's a reasonable way to solve a customer's problem, I try to find it. So those are the 5 things I think successful small businesses get right from day one. They solve a problem, they start before they're ready, they obsess over customers, they treat it like a real business, and they let customer demand guide their growth. What's funny is that when I stood next to that pool making a phone call for my wife's birthday party, I had no idea where any of this would lead. I wasn't thinking about websites, reviews, soft serve machines, ice cream carts, leases, or YouTube videos. I was just trying to rent a frozen drink machine. That's it. Looking back now, it's easy to connect the dots. But when you're in the middle of it, you can't see the whole picture. You can only see the next step. And that's where I think a lot of people get stuck. They're trying to know exactly how it ends before the story even begins. But that's not how Thirsty Dawg built it. We built with one step at a time, one customer at a time, one lesson at a time, one mistake at a time, and one opportunity at a time. If I had waited until I knew everything, I never would have started. If I had waited until I had all the equipment, I never would have started. If I had waited until my website was perfect, I never would have started. If I had waited until I felt ready, I never would have started. And maybe that's the biggest lesson in this whole video. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to have everything. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to be willing to take the next step. So if you've been thinking about starting something, don't take this as a sign to quit your job tomorrow or to risk everything. Take it as a sign to move one step forward. Make the phone call. Build the simple version. Talk to the customer. Solve the first problem, because you'll learn more from taking one imperfect step forward than you ever will from standing still. And who knows, a few years from now, you may look back at that first step the same way I look back at the phone call by the pool, as the moment everything started. If you enjoyed this video and want to follow along as I keep building this business while still working a full-time job, I'd love to have you subscribe. Also, if you have any questions, comments, or even advice for me, please leave them in the comment section. I'll do my best to respond to everyone. My goal with this channel is to share the wins, the mistakes, and the lessons I'm learning along the way. And hopefully, I can help you build something of your own a little faster than I did.